when we were doing the Lucian Alliance,
Yes.
Brad had said to me, Brad Wright, I want them to look really sort of utilitarian, Val, like really like they're the SWAT team in space. And of course, I can't help myself. Sometimes I design something. And so I built all the padding inside the outfit. So it was smooth on the outside, but I actually bought some mannequins and we cut the front off and we covered them in leather. So it was like a piece of armor, but it was, and so I wanted the whole army to have the same abs, right? So no matter what you were, you put on this breastplate and oh, you look like Cliff Simon.
It's a good model. So, it's a good model.
I mean, a lot of people embrace that, let me tell you. And then we did a fitting with our first guest player. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. And we took him up to Brad and he just went, no, it's not what I want. It's too designed. And I was like, okay. So I literally, I haven't told many people this story, and certainly not on such a large audience, but I'm confessing here. I sent my whole team home at 3 p.m. and said, stop everything. Because we had an assembly line going. We were making 30 of these, 40 of these. And he had just said, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And so, and Brad is a very nice person. I'm sure that, I went up, sent them home, and I went up and talked to him. I sat on his couch and said, okay, what are you looking for? What are we missing? And then I stayed there that night. And I remember being like the only one on the lot and working on a mannequin and taking it apart and trying not to like completely fall apart, really, because it was devastating to me. Brad was not happy because that was my goal.
Yeah.
And then I came up with an idea and we kind of stripped it down, and I went to him the next morning and I showed him and we put it on somebody and he said, I can live with that. That makes sense to me. Like now it makes sense. So we actually, in fact, at the start of the episode, we had them in the breastplates on the spaceship. And then when they landed, they went into the other one. So we didn't completely waste everything because it's all budgetary as well.
So you were shooting at that point.
We were shooting, I think this was on a Thursday. We were shooting Monday.
Oh my gosh. So you were busting your butt.
Yeah.
This wasn't weeks of pre-production time that we're talking about here.
No, we were in the final stages. We were pretty far along as well. We'd committed a lot of money and a lot of time. And so I had to find a way to sort of use what we had and build new ones and then go to them and pitch that, So I would say when it went on camera, I was nervous beyond anything. And then when we saw them together and we broke them down a lot more and stuff, Brad said, no, I'm good. I'm good. But I had a funny feeling that was his least favorite thing I ever did. And that always stuck with me. Right.
You want your executive producer to be happy, but
and creator.
You were right. Exactly. And you want to, no, that's certainly true. And you want, but also, there has to be a balance between what the creative wants and you as a creative person need to fulfill as well, because you can create XYZ in space. That doesn't necessarily, at a certain point, I suppose you have to say, okay, this is a space creature or X, Y, or Z, and it's not on Earth, and I've just got to trust that this is what they want. I'm not going to be able to have my way every single time. Not that it's your way against theirs, but sometimes it is. Like in this, you had a look, and it wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah. But then I had to fight for aspects of it and explain why I did it. And then he was like, okay, now I understand your thinking. So maybe, they were very collaborative. Because I once went into a meeting, with bolts of fabric and, this is what I'm going to do, and showing them sketches. And they would always be like, Paul Mully looked at me and said, Val, do what you do. Like, I just thought that was the nicest compliment anybody had said to me. I'd ask my questions about, is he in jeopardy? Is he stunted? And all that, gone through the whole script. And he said, you do what you do. And that made me feel like they trusted me. And that's what, that's where you ideally want to get. And that's what happens in a family, right? When you're with people for years and you prove yourself to each other. That's why it was such a great franchise to be a part of.
The Lucian Alliance uniforms and so much of that, there was a lot of leather on that Destiny, on that ancient ship. The Gunny Orbe wanted to know, how different was it designing uniforms for the Lucians as opposed to the more familiar military uniforms? So I guess that basically answers that. Mike Dopud, God bless him. You had
Oh,
worked with him on all three shows. He had
yeah,
started off as just a bounty hunter in SG-1. Then
yeah,
he was a child protector in
yeah.
Atlantis as Kirik. So we went from Odai Ventrell to Kirik, and then finally to Varro.
Tomorrow.
And in so many respects, it's not that his performance is a single note, but they were clearly picking an actor who had that I'm tough on the outside, but I'm really gushy and mushy on the inside.
Yeah,
Where you could just like saddle up next to him and get to know this character for a little bit, and after a while, be like, man, I totally get you.
yeah. He's an amazing actor. He's really a great guy, but he, like you say, I mean, he was three different sort of characters.
Mm.
He was in three different costumes and three different names, but he really did play a lot of the same heart on the outside. He was always that missionary, kind of warrior kind of feel to him. And he's a strong guy. So he was always so fun to design for.
What is, would you say, Philip Schwartz, your single greatest costume feat, or a couple of them from the entire Stargate franchise, when you really look back at that and say, you know what, that was a great piece. I did good.
Okay. I have a couple, actually. I've thought of it. I'm going to start with Stargate Universe and Dr. Rush, who was who was a professor, right?
Right.
And, Bobby was coming from Scotland. So a lot of our preliminary, conversations were not in person. And so we were quite far ahead on his costume when he arrived. And we made some subtle changes. But what I had decided was we didn't want to do the predictable. He's a great actor. He also is kind of a wiry guy, so you couldn't dress him like you would Michael Shanks, right? It was
Right.
just a different.
And he's a smaller guy too.
He is, and he can be a little bit overwhelmed if
Yeah.
you don't understand that. So I did quite a bit of sort of research on that, and when he arrived, so I didn't want to have him in a tweed jacket and a blue shirt.
The stereotypical professor.
Exactly, and they were going to be stranded.
Yeah.
Possibly for 5 to 10 years with the Stargate, record and history. So I thought we've got to have 30 of these or 40 of these in his closet, right? Because he's going to go through levels of breakdown and jeopardy and stunting and all that. So this is a oneer. Basically, it's a oneer. These costumes had to be just perfect for the characters. So I actually decided to make him a brown. It's called nubuck. It's sort of a cross between suede and leather. And I found this great fabric, and I had, great talent on our team, and they made him a blazer. But it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't that kind of, cheesy leather thing. So that had some depth, and it would have looked great on camera. And plus, it wasn't black; it was brown. And then I made him a vest. And because of Robert's stature, it was sort of a small check, right? But it was that kind of British feel to it. That was my ode to the professor. And he ended up wearing a white waffle underneath, which we thought that was his idea, and it was such a great idea.
Okay.
Instead of a collared shirt. So I made this vest, and I was like, how can I make this different and unique and worthy of Stargate, right? Worthy of our work that we had done. And so I was at a fabric store one day where I spent a lot of my time, and I found this beautiful silk, and I just saw part of it. It kind of looked like a moonscape, right? And I thought, but then it was like a peacock, but part of it looked like a planet. And I thought, oh. And so I grabbed it, and I reserved a whole bunch of it. I took it back to my cutter, and I said, I want to make this into the lining of the vest, but because he's always putting a pencil and a pad. That was part of his character that they were building. So I thought, if I can talk him into using the vest rather than the jacket, we can make this, something great. So we ended up building this by piecing together this silk into a moonscape. And then when Bobby came for the fitting, I said, this is my thought. And he was like, okay, I like it. He came the next day for another fitting. He said, I've been thinking about it. I want like a real pencil. I want a real pad, because I want to always be doing that. Always be doing that, Val.
Yeah,
And
the
so,
actors want business. You know,
Yeah.
they want to be able to keep themselves busy.
Yeah. And so that was actually one of my proudest costumes I've ever built.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of
great.
my favorites.